So today we're going to be doing the Monte-type beat, and as you can tell I have a chord progression already laid out, and there's just a few different things that I did this time around. And instead of using a electric piano Lounge Lizard plugin, I used a string patch from Arturia from the Selena V. I kind of like the Arturia plugins, and I just got this thing downloaded. But anyways, as you can tell, I labeled each of the different sections by the bass note of the chord, so I could go ahead and play over it later. And this song is in A sharp minor, which is all the black notes, and then C and F. So I'm not very used to playing the scale, but let's go ahead and just listen real quick. So good melody, good harmony, but it doesn't sound very much like Monte right now. But that's alright, because as soon as we add some rhythm later on, it'll be alright. And this is kind of like the intro sound. He likes to use a lot of string type sounds in his intros, or he has in some songs. So I thought I might just start with that. But next, what I wanted to do was create a lead, and we're just gonna go straight to a saw wave, and it's gonna be monophonic, which means one voice, so there's not gonna be any chords, and there's also gonna be some glide. And you may be wondering why the glide. Well, for his melodies, often he will have the vocal lead type of sound that is unique to his style. So I want to just first lay out the melody like we usually do, and then work on creating that sound, since we don't want to waste time creating something if the melody's not going to work later on. We just want to first try out the ideas, and then once everything's down, we want to go ahead and lay the sound design out how we want it to be. So anyways, I'm just gonna real quick record something. I've already done this melody before, so I know what I'm gonna do. So, oh shit, and of course I fuck up. Oh my lord, what am I doing? So we want to have that glide, of course. Now we're gonna make this a little bit more complicated, but yeah, I just wanted to lay out the basic melody. Very simple. We don't want to go too crazy, and of course I don't want to make this mix sound too muddy like in some previous videos, since people don't really like that. So we're gonna keep it minimalistic, I guess, but it's gonna sound good. I'm gonna take a quick thinking break, because I gotta think about which direction I'm gonna go in, and then I'll be back. Okay, so what I've done is I've went ahead and added a string instrument, and basically it's in, I believe this is eighths. I played basically the same chords but in eighths, and then I added a little bit of different variation to them, and it's kind of just to add some more movement, I guess. So let's go ahead and listen to it real quick. I'm gonna turn on my volume as well. So as you can hear, it's kind of muddy right now, but obviously eventually when we arrange this stuff, these two tracks are not going to be playing at the same time, or there's going to be some EQing to be done. So definitely stay tuned until the end, and I'll mix this down a little bit better. But what I was thinking is I wanted to pull this back like this, and then right before the second part hits again, you kind of get this upbeat kind of, it's kind of like a fill, like what a fill would do, like a drum fill. It kind of adds a lot of movement, and then back to the chord progression again. So if we listen, it'll be like normal speed, and then all of a sudden it's gonna have this kind of drum fill effect where it's going fast, and then I can't really explain it. Let's just listen. so it's kind of like a filler. My recording kind of just cut off by accident. I was trying to do the command to add a different track, but I accidentally hit the wrong command and turned off my recording. But anyways, I just wanted to make a quick bass line real quick, or a bass sound, and then we're gonna make the bass line. So I'm just gonna do that real quick. I'm not gonna explain too much, but basically you want, or what I like to do for this kind of a sound, I'm trying to recreate the Monte sound. I would get 2 sine waves, 2 sine square ones, and then have one kind of be in between a sine and a square, or somewhere where it'll have a little bit more harmonics, and then the other one just be a full sine wave. And then I guess the rest you can just watch. I guess I'm just gonna try to finish this real quick. So I'm gonna add some sine shaper, I guess. You don't want too much, but you also want to hear a noticeable difference. Especially in the lower octaves. I like to use the Bronner tube. And then have some release as well. And obviously you don't want to be playing chords with this sound because it's a bass sound, so you want it to be a monophonic sound with legato, so we can get a sliding effect. Now that we have this sound, we also don't want to have higher octaves. As you can tell, that's really painful to listen to. So what we do is that we could just EQ this so that the higher sounds don't get through, and so that it doesn't clash with the rest of the sounds. And obviously we can make this less harsh. Alright, so now we have a nice sub sound, and obviously when we add a kick in front of it, it's gonna sound a lot better. It's gonna sound very punchy and stuff, especially when we compress the two together. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and quickly record a bass line, since it's gonna take me a while to do that, since I don't usually play in this scale. And I turned down my volume as well. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and do that and be back in like 1 second. Alright, so I made a basic bass line, and for this kind of a song, and for this kind of a progression right now, we want solid and really long notes, and we can go ahead and slide them and glide them around a little bit later. But I made another change, which is I added some saturation just so that the lower octaves will sound more powerful. And I got the settings just right. And earlier when I was turning up the volume, I turned up the volume and soloed the bass line, and it sounded so strong. It was like literally making my ears like compress or pop or something. I don't know. It was like really it was crazy. It wasn't even clipping, but it sounds really nice. So I'm actually gonna save like this preset, and I'm gonna go ahead and demonstrate how you can do that. So I'm getting an instrument rack, and I copy what's in the other track, and then I put it in the instrument rack. And then once you do that, you can go ahead and save a preset for later. I'm gonna call it ear popping sub, because like literally this thing was like popping my ears. I don't know what I did. Oh, I have to add .adg at the end as well. Now I'm gonna see if this will load. Yeah, it seems to me. Okay, yeah, so it works. But yeah, I just wanted to demonstrate how you can save a set of plugins. It doesn't even have to be Ableton plugins. It can be any sequence of effects and plugins. But anyways, these are the settings. I turned up the drive and also turned on the output by the same amount that I turned up the drive, so that we wouldn't have some volume changes that were too large. Like, we don't want it to start clipping. And then I put it on DC mode, and these are kind of the settings. But this thing was like popping my ears. It was so crazy, and it's not even clipping or anything. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and play the bass line real quick and turn on my volume, because it likes to bleed through my microphone when I have it too high. So as you can hear, very basic. It's alright. We're just getting the ideas down first. And actually what we can do is we can start making it more interesting. Now, an important part of creating a full song is the automation. Now, once you have the main ideas down, and I would say that this is like the main thing that we want to play around with, all these chords and these melodies right here that we have right here. So now that we have all this laid out, we can start playing with gliding and extra things and automation. And to kind of start the drop, I was thinking about adding like a sliding note at the beginning, like that, except having it longer. So what you can do is automate the glide and actually make it longer at the beginning, so that it'll have like a long kind of upward glide, and it sounds cool. And this is something that I heard in his song Election, I think it was called. And I mean, I may have to play around with this to get it just right. Sometimes you may want to bring it in a little bit later. And what we can do is turn on the automation a little bit earlier, so that it'll suddenly just pop up, I guess. So as you can tell, it plays the note. And I use this effect in the song Maserati on my SoundCloud as well, where I automated the glide time to have different glide at different parts. But if you listen, you can hear it starts out and then it slides and then suddenly comes up. And then right here we're gonna have it come back in. We can actually have the glide a little bit higher here, I guess. And obviously we want it, if the glide's a little bit higher, we want it to come in a little bit earlier. So around here. But anyways, I'm gonna play around with this and hopefully add some more variations of this whole line right here. And how you can do that is just duplicate this and then edit what's in here, and then you can drag that out, and then you have some variation. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick, and I'll be back in a second. Alright, so I made a baseline variation real quick, and as you can tell, there's some more automation on the note slide, and I gotta disable this note. I have some upward slide on some of these notes before it comes back down again, but I'm gonna go ahead and play it because I can't really describe everything in words. And I also mapped the vibrato to the mod wheel, and as you can tell when I spin it, so what I did is I just did MIDI learn and then I moved my mod wheel, but whenever I do that, it kind of disables the automation, so I'm not gonna mess around with that just yet. But anyways, the next thing I want to do, obviously like I said, this doesn't sound at all like Monte right now, but except for this part right here, this kind of filler, but the main chords do not sound like something that would be used by Monte. It's more of like an intro kind of thing to introduce the idea that I'm gonna bring in on the drop. Now what I want to do for his style is create some sort of a stacked wave, like a super wave, so like a super saw or something, but obviously we want to change the sound of the saw so it's just not a simple kind of sound. But for now we're just gonna bring up the unison. I want it to sound right first with the rest of the settings before I start changing the wave. Because at the end of the day, we want a super saw, and all the other settings come after. But damn, I keep stuttering. I'm like not in a mood to talk right now. But what I want to do is add some more harmonics, change it up a little bit. So as you can tell, I added like a flat part, and you can tell it's like a square, and you can kind of hear the squareness coming out. So that's kind of interesting. So sound design is like, there's a lot of things about it that I need to learn. But when I mess around a little bit, I tend to get things right. Alright, so I still want it to maintain kind of a saw type of feel. So we want it to peak up at the ends like a regular saw wave. And I'm actually gonna lower this one and that one. This is so confusing. You gotta have good visual like senses to do this kind of stuff, or a good visual brain, I guess. Alright, so it sounds alright. It has some more harmonics. Now another strategy you can do is add noise, and like I explained in a different video, I got rid of the first sound. I don't know why, but it was like breaking my serum. Like every time I would play that sound, it would crash the whole Ableton project. Now eventually we should add an envelope on this noise so it's not so blatant, but it kind of blurs things out a little bit, you know, and flattens it and makes it sound more patty, I guess. Now chorus is another thing I don't really understand, but I mean, it's all about what you hear, and it's a good way to kind of flatten out and kind of make the sound into more of a pad type of sound, I guess. I'm gonna have to play around with some of these settings, but for now I'm gonna work on the main sound, I guess. And I want to also have a filter on this, but I'm gonna do it outside of Serum because Serum tends to use a lot of CPU, especially when I'm recording at the same time, so I'm not even gonna mess around within the program for the filter. Now I feel like we need to bring up the level of this saw and bring this down a little bit. So this is gonna be the foundation kind of underneath. It still fills up the sound, but we want to also have this be more more aggressive and more stand out more, I guess. Now we can have a different envelope for this sound. And again, not too high. So kind of a cool kind of fading in effect. I may or may not skip forward if this is too long and boring. The patch that I was working on, I cut off the clip because it was taking a little bit long, and basically it's the same sound that you guys saw earlier, except it has a little bit of a different automation for the envelope, especially on the saw wave. It sounds more like a pluck. And I have some ideas for how we can use this in terms of chords, but also it sounds good as a melody kind of instrument. So yeah, that's a melody that I came up with for a different song that I'm working on, and it's gonna be pretty cool. I kind of want to make like a compilation of stuff, but it sounds good as chords as well, which is what we're gonna do. And like I said before, we're gonna have a auto filter on it. I didn't want to do this inside Serum because there's too much CPU usage, so hopefully this sounds good. But as you can tell, when you hold it as well, it kind of sustains, which is good as shit. It's kind of what we want. So for this kind of thing, I wanted to have chords kind of come in a little bit later. Turn down my volume as well. And then we're gonna select this. I'm kind of distracted right now, so I may stutter a lot and or may not say anything at all. Depends. Anyways, you guys get the point. We're gonna chop it up a little bit. We're gonna come up with something that sounds nice and more bouncy, I guess, and more swingy. And I'm definitely gonna try to add some swing to this as well. So I'm gonna be back in a second. Alright, so what I've done right here is automated the filter and added more chops, I guess, to this whole thing, and we can go ahead and listen to it soloed. So. As you can tell, there's a little bit of lag right now, or a lot of it, because of CPU usage. I'm gonna try to turn up the samples a lot, but we could go ahead and listen to it with the Selena as well, so we can have some context. So you guys can hear it in context. It sounds nice, except eventually we're gonna have to EQ some stuff and edit this first line, especially in the drop, so that it's not clashing with the rest of the stuff. It sounds even better with the sub, but I'm gonna keep going forward real quick. And so the next thing that we want is, obviously we want to replace this sound with kind of a vocal legato instrument like Monte uses a lot. Now for this, I'm gonna get a sampler, and a sampler is basically an instrument that plays a sample at different pitches when you play on your keyboard. So obviously we want a vocal chop or a vocal sample for this next part, so I'm gonna get an audio track. Now you can use any kind of vocal chop or anything, as long as it has a scale, it has like a key. You could get a tuner in audio effects, and then you play the sample that you want. I already have a sample from previous trials that I did. This is trial 2 of this video, so obviously I mess up sometimes, but I chose a vocal sample already. And as you can tell, it's in the key of C, so we don't have to do too much to it. As you can tell in the sampler, if we drag it in, the root key is already C by default. Now if the sample that you chose is not in the key of C when you play it and the tuner says something different, you're gonna have to change the root key in your sampler to a different note. But what I went ahead and did is I compressed this sound 2 different times. I compressed it and then froze the track and then recompressed it, and then I got this, which is basically just a more even sound, I guess. It doesn't fade out at the end, and that's good for when we're gonna be looping it, because we want to be able to hold the key and slide the notes. Now that we have this sound in the sampler, we can delete the audio track, and now we're able to play it. Now as you can tell, it's playing chords, so it's polyphonic right now. We want it to be monophonic, so what we do is we would make this into one voice and turn glide on to be able to slide the notes. And I would turn the glide up a little bit to get that Monte type of glide, I guess. And right now I can't really hear the sound. Alright, that sounds good. Now the next thing is we want it to be looped. So what that means is that when we hold the key, it's gonna keep playing. So what we do is change the sustain mode to loop mode, and this is the start. This is the start point. So when we hit the key, it's gonna start here, and then this dark orange part is the loop that it's gonna play. Now you want to choose an even sample that can be looped without having any clicking, so that may take some trial and error, but this one is very even sounding. This is kind of like the same kind of effect that Cashmere Cat would use for his vocals as well, but you want to find one peak of a wave, and as you can tell when you look at the waves, they're all pretty similar. And then we want to bring in the other end and bring it to a different peak. And as you can tell, it kind of has some clicking and some volume problems right now, so you want to be able to move it around a little bit. Now I think this is the best that we'll be able to do with this particular sample. But what you can do is add some crossfading a little bit. Which will smooth out the loop mode. So but yeah, that's how you get that vocal lead type of sound. And I'll change this to vocals. And again, you can't get that quality kind of smooth sound using effects or anything. You need a sample that sounds already very smooth, because if you listen, he has like very smooth and crispy sounding vocals, and it all starts with the sample that you choose. And same thing with the looping. If the sample is kind of different throughout the whole thing, and there's like vibrato and all that, you won't be able to loop it nicely. But yeah, now we can go ahead and turn the volume back down because it's going to be loud, and then bring this melody down. It's going to sound very cheesy right now, and we definitely need to do some more stuff to this, but I'm going to go ahead and just play it real quick. So pretty cool. I'm gonna have to think a little bit and probably do some work on this melody right here so it's not so square and so predictable. I may or may not be able to come up with something a little bit better, but I definitely need a break real quick, so I'm gonna be right back. Right, so I made a few changes to the vocal melody, and it's about time to kind of move on to the drums, I guess, but I'm gonna go ahead and play what I made so far. So unfortunately in the other clip it was kind of low volume and I didn't pick that up fast enough, and I kind of realized it a little bit too late, but I turned up the volume so it's more audible. And now what we got to do is do some more mixing, I guess, to the other instruments, make them kind of have like a more equal level, I guess, and then definitely add some drums. I think right away we can just go ahead and add a kick or a kick pattern, and sidechain the sub, which I need to label real quick because it says massive. We're going to sidechain the sub to the kick so that whenever the kick hits, it's going to quickly duck the level of the sub. It's going to bring it down very quickly and then bring it right back up. And this is kind of like, I would say, like a noir sound type of track. Whenever I think of Monte, I kind of think of people like Montel and Ocean, Mad Bliss, all those people. And I kind of associate them into the same category, kind of, I guess. Now we want to find a good kick, so I need to be able to hear it. I like that one a lot already. So yeah, just gonna quickly make the kick pattern. It's gonna be 2 bars long, and then we're gonna add some variation. And we want the volume to be all the way up on the kick, the velocity I mean, and then we want to also turn up the volume as well. And as you tell, it's clipping in the master. We can temporarily add a limiter because I know it bothers some people. I don't know, it doesn't really bother me until I'm mastering and kind of finishing up the whole track. So he doesn't really have like that traditional kind of hip-hop kick progression or kick rhythm, I guess. So we're not gonna make it all trappy, you know. So I like to outline the first kind of main kicks, I guess. he likes to, well, I mean, I'm not gonna say that they like, because I don't really know, but I hear this a lot in this kind of style of music, which is the kick rolls, where you have the kick kind of rolling in. And right now I have it way too close together. And again, I messed up. I don't know what's going on. What am I doing right now? Relies on the other elements of a drum pattern to kind of make up for the simple kind of kick pattern, I guess. So I'm gonna keep it basic. It sounds good. It has some decent movement. I want to have a clap sample as well. I'm gonna take it out of the Noir Sound sample pack. He kind of has like this kind of liquidy type of, it sounds liquidy to me. I don't really know. It's kind of like soft sounding, I guess. Yeah, kind of like that, or like this. I guess we could layer this snap with something. It would sound good. I really don't know. I mean, I really don't like how that's sounding right now. I'm gonna change that out with some other sample, and then we're just gonna change it eventually. So yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit of thinking and maybe some work on this, and then I'm gonna be right back in a second. Something I forgot to go over was the side chaining of the sub. Now obviously it was clipping earlier, and my dumbass went straight to the master track and added a limiter when I had just said that we were gonna side chain the sub to the kick. Now what that means, like I said before, is that it's gonna duck the volume down every time the kick hits. Now the input is gonna be from the drum rack, and we're gonna specify that it's from the kick. And I'm just gonna put it pre-effects, because you don't know, if you add a reverb, then it's gonna like extend the, I mean, I don't, if you're adding reverbs to kicks, then there's something wrong with you, but the effects may like trigger the sidechain longer than you want it to, which is why you want to choose pre-effects. But as you can tell, it kind of ducks the volume, and also it adds this cool kind of effect, like this modulation to it. And I kind of like how it's set up right now with the attack and the release. So it's nice, and it kind of keeps the levels down for us. It sounds beautiful. Oh my goodness. Yeah, but as you can tell, I think the vocals are a little bit loud. But it's clipping still a little bit, so we're going to keep the limiter. But you guys kind of get the point. It works nicely as a mixing effect to sidechain the sub to the kick. And it sounds really, really, really cool, honestly. So, and it sounds like compressed and nice and clean, I guess. But anyways, I'm going to go back to making some changes, I guess, to the... I said I was going to change the drums a little bit. So yeah, right, so I practically finished the whole entire song, and I just wanted to go over a few different changes that I made to some of the sounds. The sub, what I did to it was I made it stereo by turning up the voices to 3, so now there's 3 of this sound playing, and then I spread them out using the pan position option, and I turned up the stereo width in the utility effect from the audio effects. And then what I did as well is I went from a stereo EQ to a mid-side EQ, and I pulled out the lows on the sides. When you do this, it even it furthers the stereo effect even more, and it makes it sound like some different artists like Sam Galatry and Miramasa, they use this effect as well. So, and in his most recent song, he did that, kind of had the stereo going on with the mid-side EQ. So I went ahead and did it myself. But yeah, other than that, I added some percussion instruments from the KRNE pack, and as you can tell, there's like realistic sounds, and I warped them so that they would fit the timing. So if you look, I used Ableton's warping, and that's another reason why I like to use Ableton. But other than that, the vocals, I mean, I don't quite like how they turned out. They could be better. The sound is on point, but I think the sample that I used, I should have used like a different sound, like a different vowel than O. But I mean, it sounds kind of like Montel, and I tweeted about it, and I said it sounded like a dying female, and Monte actually liked that tweet. I thought that was funny. But I'm just gonna keep them in. Hopefully it doesn't bother you too much. But anyways, if you guys learned something or enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a comment or to subscribe if you're interested. And again, did I say leave a comment? Make sure to leave a like, and comment your suggestions for newer videos. And yeah, enjoy.